Thank you so much for coming to the Women's Health, Hormones, and Metabolism webinar. This webinar is for you if you've been curious about how your hormones and metabolism are affecting your overall health and things like your weight, your symptoms, and your future health. I wanted to start off by introducing myself. If you don't know who I am, my name is Vanessa Cohn. I'm an integrative health practitioner, level 2, which basically means I'm a fancy health coach that can do some functional lab testing as well as higher levels of coaching in fields like lifestyle, nutrition, fitness. I've got a precision nutrition level 1 certification, and I'm a certified personal trainer. I've helped hundreds of clients optimize their metabolism, lose weight, balance hormones, and break through weight loss plateaus. And I do that by focusing on data-driven solutions that fix the root cause of imbalances in the body. This is what I do. This is what I'm absolutely passionate about. I'm passionate about helping driven women, some men, reclaim their health and optimize their metabolism by addressing the root causes of what causes things like weight loss resistance, burnout, and hormonal imbalances. And my main methods of doing those things are through personalized coaching, science-backed strategies, and a sustainable approach. I am a woman, but I'm also a huge advocate for women to be strong and to live their strongest, best, and healthiest lives. The female body is beautiful and does amazing things when balanced, but so many women are not taught about their bodies, which is quite a shame. So I've dedicated my career to helping women understand their bodies and learn about it. So when we talk about hormones, I want you to think about the hormones together working as a symphony. When they're balanced, they make a beautiful sound. But when they're imbalanced, maybe one section is playing too loud, or one section is playing too softly, or one section comes in late, it's going to mess up the sound of the entire symphony. So this is everything we're going to be talking about on the right side of the screen here. We're going to talk about perimenopause, menopause. I do get a lot of questions about that, signs of those, how to handle it. And then we're going to transition into metabolism, myths, and what you really need to focus on for weight loss in menopause. I'm going to talk about the integrative health approach, and I'm going to give you some action steps because there will be information, but information doesn't do anything unless you take action based on it. So first, we'll talk about the premenopausal cycle for women who are still in their normal menstrual cycle years. This is a chart of what that looks like, and I won't go into the weeds with the scientific terms. But if you're a woman, you should be familiar with the phases of your cycle. Unfortunately, many women are not educated enough about their bodies in such a sense that they are very in tune with their bodies and they can listen and feel and understand the patterns that their bodies have when it comes to the menstrual cycle. So there are 4 phases. It begins with menstruation days 1 through 7 of the month, where everything is low. 7 to 14-ish is the follicular, where estrogen will start to rise. And then towards this middle of the month, ovulation. And ovulation is the main point of the cycle. Everything moves up towards ovulation, where an egg is released. And all of these hormones do start to rise right here. And then in the luteal phase, which is the second half after ovulation happens, estrogen starts to drop, and this blue line indicating progesterone will rise. A healthy menstrual cycle should look like this, about 23 to 28 days. Symptoms shouldn't be extremely painful in a healthy cycle. You shouldn't have a ton of PMS symptoms, but common symptoms that people will have are cramps, back pain, joint pain, breast tenderness, some skin issues, bloating, digestive issues, constipation, diarrhea. All of these things come with common cycles, but I don't want you to conflate common with normal. You don't have to live with some of that discomfort, and there's a lot that you can do on a daily basis to help you regulate your cycle. We're going to talk about the transition from pre-menopause to menopause, and that middle transition is called perimenopause. And you can see this chart right here. This is where perimenopause tends to start. When you're later in your reproductive years, anywhere from sometimes it starts in the 30s for women up through the 50s, you can be experiencing these symptoms. So once you get to perimenopause, you'll start to notice that your cycle length is going to start to vary. Your symptoms are going to become less predictable. New symptoms might come up, and everybody spends a different amount of time in perimenopause. For some people, it starts early. For some people, it starts a little later. And most symptoms that people complain about in the perimenopause and menopause transition come from the drop in estrogen. So estrogen is a huge hormone in the female cycle. And when that starts to drop throughout those transitional years, the symptoms that you experience, hot flashes, weight gain, digestive issues, and so much more can happen from the drop of production of estrogen. Estrogen is important. So is progesterone. So is the luteinizing hormone. All of these hormones do play their role, like we talked about, as a beautiful symphony. But when they are out of tune, out of place, too loud, too soft, so on and so forth, they do start to wreak havoc and mess up the sound of the symphony. And so if you look at the chart, we've got the late reproductive phase. Things seem to be a little bit more normal. There might be some changing symptoms. And then you go into perimenopause, where things are kind of chaotic for anywhere from, I think the range is like 5 to 13 years that people could experience this phase of life. And then you're going into menopause, where you have your last period is when menstruation pauses or it stops. And then estrogen starts to bottom out and stay low throughout that. As you get into that menopausal phase, you will start to notice less hormonal fluctuations. You're not going to have the hot flashes and the feeling like you're crazy and the emotional swings, but you'll still feel the effects of post-menopause. So you'll experience vaginal dryness, using the bathroom more, collection of fat in places that you don't want it, all of the things. As we move on, this is where we're at. So we talked about premenstrual, perimenopausal, and menopausal briefly. Here are the signs of menopause. This is a list of most of them. I definitely didn't include all of them because every woman's experience of menopause and perimenopause is slightly different, but you can read down the list. I won't read it for you. Any of these, I'll at least note the ones that are most popular that I hear of that women will have: some hot flashes, vaginal atrophy, pelvic muscles start to relax. So you'll notice that you'll have some issues holding in your pee or incontinence issues, or even, on the back end. Mental health challenges is something that will come up. Women have explained to me like they feel like they're crazy and emotional. Their sleep is messed up. And then this one, people don't report this, or they don't report that they notice it, but it does show up when you do scans. If you've ever done a DEXA scan or a bone density scan, women in their menopausal years are starting to get up there will start to lose bone density because they didn't spend a lot of their younger years building muscle mass. Muscle mass starts to deteriorate after the age of 30. So you really have to be active in building muscle and continuing to build muscle, because you're not only building muscle, but you're also strengthening your bone density. And that is why I'm such a huge proponent for weight training for women. Now, handling menopause. Many women getting to the menopausal stage are worried about it. And I just want to tell you, it doesn't have to be a miserable time. If you haven't hit that stage yet, or even if you're in the middle of it or in the transition, many women will complain to each other about the symptoms. They'll complain to each other because they know the other women might understand or might have some insight, or they might keep it to themselves because they're not quite sure what's happening yet. So I do want to give a blanket statement about the mindset that I want you to have when you're handling menopause, if you're not there or if you're in the middle of it. If you want to get fit and healthy, even going through this, the goal is to control what you can control when it comes to fitness and nutrition. Now, some people will coast their way into this season of their lives, not thinking about the combination of their past choices and how that has affected their experience of menopause. But no matter what stage you're in, I want you to know that there is still changes that can be made in your lifestyle, your fitness, and nutrition to make your experience less miserable. And here's a challenge for you. I want you to start to notice, what does that evening glass of wine do to your sleep, and how do you feel the next day? When you're younger, it's easy to just incorporate a glass of wine before bed, or on the weekends, have a few glasses or drinks with your friends, and you seem to recover pretty quickly. But as you get older, it's going to feel different. It's going to hit you differently. It's going to cause longer recovery time, worse sleep. You're not able to get in that deeper stage of sleep. I want you to start to take note on what you feel the next day. How do you feel after eating certain foods or certain meals? Do you notice that when you have this type of food that you start to bloat, or you start to feel nauseous, or your clothes might even feel differently after eating a certain meal? Think about these things. And for some people, there might be glaringly obvious issues, but for others, you actually have to slow down and take a notice to see what could be changing based on your decisions. So I guess I want to further emphasize that the choices that you make do affect the symptoms that you feel. There's a lot that you do control in the transitions of your life that you can take control of now so that you have a different outcome tomorrow. I want to give power back into your hands. A lot of women, hit these years and they're like, oh, menopause is just going to be awful. I've heard all of these things. And so they come into the mindset that it is going to be miserable for them, or they're in the middle of the struggle and they can't wait for it to be over. So when they're trying all these things and quick fixes and supplements and whatever the influencer says to do. And so I say all that to pay attention to the choices that you make, because it does make a difference. Moving on, I did talk about this just a few minutes ago, but menopause and bone loss. Look at the chart. So the blue line is men. The pink line is women. This x-axis down here is age. As women and men age, going to the right, this is what their lines look like. And on the y-axis, we have bone mass. So men and women both increase their bone mass and bone density. And then once they hit here, this is a fracture threshold. So this is a place where, as they move along in age, things will start to consolidate, which means there's not bone strength and bone mass added, but it can only go downhill from here. And for women, take a look. When they hit this menopause block in the years of their life, their bone mass drops dramatically and gets even lower after that. And this is in part due to the hormonal changes that happen in the menopausal years. So women are more likely to get osteoporosis. And I hear it every single day. Clients of a certain age, almost all of them will say, I've been diagnosed with osteoporosis or osteopenia. And this diagnosis increases in the menopausal years because of that. And once you hit that, and if you're not familiar, these two conditions are related to bone loss. When you lose bone density, bone mass, your bones become thinner and more brittle. And the big issue there is if you fall or if you get into an accident, it's easier for your bones to break or fracture. When you have weaker bones, they're more likely to break or fracture. And this can hold true for older people in general. But if you have one bad fall and your bones are weak, that could dramatically change your life. It could possibly end your life because it could be such a severe accident. It could put you in a wheelchair. It could paralyze you. It could put you in a nursing home and you lose your independence. So it's so important for not only women, but men also to train their bones to be stronger. The load and the pressure that we put on bones from building muscle makes them stronger. Bones aren't just these hard calcified deposits. They actually do have a spongy component to them in their younger years where they continue to build strength. And then once we hit those older years, they will start to lose their strength. So women, when they strength train, because they have such a predisposition for weaker bones as they age, they actually get more benefits from the strength training than men do. And it's quite unfortunate because it takes a lot more work for women to experience muscle growth than men, because muscle growth doesn't appear the same way on women as it does for men. Men get really big and bulky, and women actually cannot get bulky unless they're on, hormones and steroids. So one of the biggest fears that I hear from women is that when they're lifting, they'll get bulky. And that's just not true. There's only so much that your biology can do before other interventions can come in. But strength training, weight training, lifting, dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells, that is all open for women too. It's not just for men. It's becoming less of a stigma now as we know more, as we learn more, as we are influenced more, because the younger generations are starting to see these women in the media starting to lift weights. I really love that. And then I'm just noticing my note here, strength training is key. So stick with alloy. This presentation is for what I did a talk at a local gym. And so I missed that in my edits, but stick with any gym or strength training regimen that you have. If you don't have one, go get one. Wherever you are, there are YouTube videos where you can learn to do things on your own. You can hire a local trainer. You can hire an online trainer. You can go to classes at your local gym, YMCA, community center. There's even outdoor exercise groups at local parks. Just ask around. There is an option for you. And you don't even have to start with dumbbells. You can start with your own body weight. And as you build up strength and confidence, you can start to increase. But the goal is to build up strength, to build up your bones, to build up your confidence, because it could be life-saving. All right, that's that for hormones. There was a broad overview of the hormonal fluctuation that happens with the menstrual cycle, with perimenopause, and with menopause. What I really want you to capture from that section of the presentation is that your hormones will change with age. Your bone density and strength will change with age, but you do have a lot that you can control to make your experience of those changes less miserable and more manageable. All right, on to the section about metabolism. So metabolism is like a fire. Think of a bonfire. You need to continue to add fuel to that fire to keep the fire burning. If you don't add more wood to the bonfire, it's going to start to fizzle out. So you have to continue to feed it to keep it alive. That's kind of like our metabolism. It'll start to slow down when we don't feed it. And when we feed it and we keep working with it, it maintains itself and we continue to burn those calories. Now, metabolism, let's talk about it. It is a scientific term that encompasses a lot of things. It is made up of 4 primary components, but metabolism essentially is everything that happens in your cells to give your body energy. That's what metabolism is. This is how metabolism is calculated. There's your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. Basically, if you were to lay in bed all day, your body would burn that amount of calories. And yes, your body still burns calories when you're relaxing because it takes energy to keep your heart pumping, to keep your organs functioning, to keep your brain on. It does take energy. That's why it's so important to give our body appropriate energies. It actually takes up 70% of your total daily energy needs. The next acronym we'll talk about is the thermic effect of food, TEF. So when you eat food, it also takes energy to digest and convert that food to energy. 10% of what you eat every day is taken from the food that you eat to convert that food into energy that you will use. Then we have the EAT. This is the amount of energy that you burn when you exercise. And then there's non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. This is the energy that you use for things like staying awake, maybe sitting, maybe walking, eating, and just existing. And that's about 15% of your total daily energy expenditure. And I want to share all of this not to confuse you about metabolism, but when women think about metabolism, they're like, I have to eat as few calories as possible so that my metabolism can continue to burn the fat away because I'm not putting that much into it. But your body needs a good amount of fuel just to keep you alive, to keep you digesting your food, to keep you up and moving when you do your daily activities. And there's a bunch of calories burned in just the process of keeping you alive. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions that I hear about metabolism on a daily basis. So we're just going to break those myths down just in case you've heard them. I want you to start to change your mindset around what metabolism is and how to work with your metabolism. Number 1, eating less and exercising more. I want you to know that eating less and exercising more isn't always the answer. Often it's not. Like I said, your metabolism is like a fire. And I'll explain the concept of metabolic adaptation. Essentially, when your body eats too little, your body will adapt to the little intake that's coming in and it'll start to slow things down for you. So if you think that eating tiny little bite-sized meals is going to make your metabolism faster, it's going to do the exact opposite. There's also the myth that if you struggle with weight loss, your metabolism is slow or broken. And there is research that came out, I want to say less than 10 years ago, that metabolism doesn't actually start to slow down until after the age of 60 to 65. The metabolic rate for the average person does stay steady. But if you feel like your metabolism is slow, That's an invitation to look deeper. Another myth that I'll bust is that eating small meals can boost your metabolism. For some people, it can temporarily, but it overall, done for too long, it does more harm than good because it causes your blood sugar to fluctuate too much. It spikes, it drops, it spikes, it drops, it spikes, it drops. And that can cause a whole other cascade of hormonal imbalances in your body as well. And then there's the myth that thin people have a faster metabolism. That's not necessarily true. Thin people versus larger people, there is no proof that thin people have a faster metabolism. So now that I've started to bust some of those myths for you, let's continue based on the myth busting and the little I've taught you about metabolism. This is what you really need to focus on for weight loss. Like I said, I don't want to overwhelm you with the technical stuff, but there are action steps that you can take to continue to work on your body and to fuel your metabolism if weight loss through the perimenopausal years is something that you want to work on. Number 1, balancing your blood sugar to help give you stable energy and less fat storage. Basically, when you hear about blood sugar, the first thing that comes to mind is that's something applicable to someone with diabetes. And it's not. All of us have blood sugar that we get tested. Whenever we go to our annual doctor's visits, we have our glucose tested. That's your blood sugar. And if our glucose number turns out to be too high, our doctor will start to be concerned about us and start talking about nutrition and maybe getting on insulin or making some changes. And so, with modern life being so stressful and the convenience of fast and easy foods, blood sugar has taken a hit when it comes to appropriate regulation and balancing of it. So I'll show you some images of how to build a plate that will balance your blood sugar later in this presentation. But balancing your blood sugar can help give you stable energy and less fat storage. Okay. Like number 2, I want you to nourish your body instead of starving it. If you fuel your body appropriately with enough food, you're going to have less cravings. Imagine if you're starving your body and only eating tiny little salads all day, every day, and late at night, you're scrolling on your phone and you see an ad for Sonic down the street, your mouth starts to water. And because you're hungry, you didn't eat enough food, your body desperately wants all of these unhealthy foods. And you might cave and hop in your car and go over to the drive-thru or do a DoorDash order. But I'm telling you, if your body doesn't feel full, which means you're fueling it appropriately, you're not going to crave things as much. Okay? Now, this point also mentions cortisol. Cortisol is an important hormone that we haven't brought up in this presentation, but I do want to take a few minutes to give cortisol her place, I suppose. So if you're taking notes, cortisol is a stress hormone. I'm sure you've heard it, a buzzword on social media and all over in different health spaces. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Cortisol is released for many reasons in the body, mostly to keep you safe and regulated. When you're not fueling your body and eating tiny meals or not eating enough, your body releases cortisol out of a stress response because your body needs energy to keep yourself alive. So if the blood sugar drops to a point where it's getting hard for your body to use energy because it can't find stored energy, your blood sugar will drop to a point of alarm. Systems will kick on in your body, and one of those is the raising of cortisol. So when cortisol is high, the body's looking for fuel from anywhere. So it'll find other sources to get that energy. It can come from stored cells. Sometimes it can come from your muscle cells and the breakdown of your muscle cells to get that energy. But if you give yourself enough food, you won't have that problem. Cortisol will not be released in that panic sense because your body knows that it's getting enough food. Your body does feel safe. I hope that makes sense. Next point, muscle building strength training is important because muscle burns more calories at rest. And this helps to achieve the toned look you want. Muscle. Women are afraid to build muscle because they don't want to look bulky. But when you talk about that toned look, like you want to look like your body is toned and defined and pretty, what is being toned is the muscle. You're not toning your bones. It's what muscle is underneath the skin that gives it that defined look. So building muscle is toning muscle. And the toning aesthetic is, if you've never heard this before, is when your body has a lower body fat percentage that you can see the muscle underneath the skin. Everybody's got muscle, but some people have more muscle than others and less fat than others. And some people have different amounts of each of those things. You could have a good amount of muscle underneath some layers of fat. That's where you see these strong female athletes. They might seem a little larger to the average person, but they actually have a lot of muscle underneath their fat. They're very healthy, even if it doesn't seem like the thin models that you see on television. That doesn't mean that they're unhealthy. That means that they have built muscle. We just don't want an excessive amount of body fat. The next point I'll bring up is managing stress. This is not optional, but many people think that it is. Cortisol is released when you are stressed, and the bad effects of cortisol can relate to blood sugar fluctuations. It can relate to the mood swings that you experience as a female, whether or not you're in the perimenopausal stage or not, because stress just weighs on us. Women have higher sensitivities to the different things, where some people like to bury or ignore issues. Some women don't do that. Some women like to deal with their emotions. They're comfortable with them, and that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually pretty healthy depending on your coping skills and how you manage your emotions. But stress and emotions are intertwined. They're not exactly the same thing. I do want to say managing stress is not optional. We're stressed from all sorts of things: work, family life, sometimes friendships, world circumstances, economic pressures, anything external, anything internal, anything in our circles. All of those things can bring an amount of stress to us. But when we are overloaded with stress, when stress overtakes our minds, this becomes a problem. So let's talk about managing stress. Find a hobby. If you like to be creative, find some way to express your creativity, whether it be in making something with your hands, playing music, writing, painting. Find something that you genuinely enjoy doing. Find something that fills your cup. Get around the people that just make you feel completely yourself and help you relax. Put that on your calendar. Put yourself on your calendar, and everything else will fall into place. Maybe you like to get a massage. Maybe you like to go for nature walks. Whatever that is to help you calm down, I want you to schedule that in your calendar regularly, because that is a part of the weekly, even daily stress management that we need to do to help keep our bodies healthy. Next point I'll bring up is getting good quality sleep. Now, this is something that women will also bring up as a point of contention. If you're not sleeping well because of multiple reasons, you might have to go to the bathroom at 3:00 in the morning. You might be woken up for seemingly no reason. You are so anxious that it's hard for you to sleep. You have hot flashes. Whatever the reason is, getting good quality sleep is key. One of the problems that many women struggle with is not being able to stay asleep. When it comes to sleep, don't be watching television or any type of screens before bed. It can not only block melatonin from being released, it can cause you to worry or be stressed, especially if you're on social media or looking at anything intense. I know there's a lot of women who love their true crime, but honestly, that doesn't help you feel safe and happy and calm. It might put you in a stressful or paranoid state. Maybe you're eating too close to bedtime or drinking too much close to bedtime, and that can cause you to wake up and use the bathroom in the middle of the night. There is also a biological response at about 3 to 5 in the morning where your blood sugar drops and cortisol is released to wake you up, because your body wants to keep you alive and remind you to get some fuel. That can be managed with general blood sugar balance, but also, I will tell people as a little hack, take a teaspoon of peanut butter right before bed, because that'll help keep your blood sugar levels stable. This really works in conjunction with a healthy, balanced nutrition. Another thing I'll tell you to do is to support your gut and liver health to regulate your hormones. Your gut and your liver process and clear out hormones. And when your gut and liver are not doing well, there's going to be some recirculation. There's going to be hormones that don't break down well. There's going to be hormones that aren't produced well, and we're going to have a bunch of issues from there. Now, I want to challenge you with a question. Which of these do you need to work on personally? So we've talked about hormones. We've talked about metabolism. We're going to shift gears a little bit into integrative health. What exactly is it? So it is looking at the whole person from different aspects of the systems, your digestive system, your urinary system, your blood pressure system, your nervous system, your circulatory system, the whole person, and seeing where the imbalances are and trying to rebalance the body in harmony. What we like to do is, in the integrative space, we talk about root cause or root causes, because typically when you have chronic conditions or chronic symptoms, it's often not one singular thing that causes it, but it could be a number of things working in your body to produce those types of symptoms. In our modern world, when people go to the doctor with a problem, the doctor will not always hear the patient out, or they might prescribe a pill. And so people are on so many different types of pills. Like, I'm sure you've heard the anecdote of a woman who goes to the doctor for her blood pressure and gets put on a blood pressure pill, but the blood pressure pill gives her anxiety. So for her anxiety, she gets put on an anxiety pill, but then her anxiety pill causes another symptom, and she gets put on another pill for that, which causes another side effect. And it just is this snowball effect of pills. And on the other hand, in the integrative side of things, we want to look at, why is your blood pressure high in the first place? What are the contributing factors of that? And can we help balance the body so that that doesn't get high? And the way that we do that is we gather information through data, and we do that through observation, experimentation, and lab work to see what the body needs and respond accordingly. So one of the things that I offer as a coach is hormone testing. Now, this is just a sample of XYZ female and what her hormones look like. But I wanted to give you an example of what we do. So we will look at lab work, typically through blood, but we do other testing as well. We can do stool, urine, saliva, hair, all of the things. But this is a sample of a female who came with hormonal imbalances, low androgens, which are basically your sex hormones, high cortisol, high stress, metabolic syndrome, and a low metabolism. I can see some of these stats. She's this tall. She's 51 years old. She's postmenopause. This is her weight, BMI, all of that. And these are for levels. These are her symptoms that you can see on the left side. Again, these are popular symptoms for women going through the menopausal journey. And if you're in that journey, this could be what your lab results look like. We don't know until we test them. But you can see in the green, some of the numbers are, which is good, where we want them. But there's a marker right here where this woman has high morning cortisol. So starting out her day, her body is super stressed, and it's going to lead to all of these things in relation to everything else that she shares with us. And it's going to be one of the reasons why she's having these symptoms and what's going on in her body. So the lab testing is some of the pieces of data that us as integrative health practitioners use to make decisions on how to take this client's particular care. And as you'll notice, it's very personalized. This is data from her own body. So we'll use this data from her own body. We'll also use what she tells us that she's experiencing. We'll also use the answers to questions that we give her, because we do a pretty in-depth intake with every single one of our clients to see what's going on an individual level. How are they describing things or noticing things? And we take all of these, I like to call them puzzle pieces. We take them together. We look at the big picture and see what would be the best next steps for, let's say her name is Sally, to do. So this is what that looks like. And this particular test is a blood and a saliva test. So this person did it in the privacy of her own home. She pricked her finger with a little needle, and she spit into a tube, different points of the day, to see what her hormones were like. So as an integrative coach, this is what I do. I'll take all of the data, the symptoms, the lab reports, and what Sally is sharing with me, and I'm going to treat Sally as a person, not a statistic. I'm not going to treat Sally like every other person her name, age, profile is treated in the medical system. She is her own person. She is an individual. Her body might respond differently to another woman in the same set of conditions because her biology is different. And I wanted to lead into what I do as a coach, as an integrative health practitioner. Now, this is one of the roadmaps that I will take people through. This is the 3F roadmap of one of my health coaching programs, starting with foundations. When I work with people, men or women, we focus on setting the right and solid foundation to build upon. This is where we're resetting our habits when it comes to sleep, nutrition, exercise, so on and so forth. We want to set a healthy foundation to build upon. And as we continue to build upon that, if the goal is fat loss, the body can be ready for fat loss. And then as we come out of the fat loss phase, because we're not supposed to be in a fat loss phase forever, we start to fortify and solidify the changes that were made and make them sustainable so that you can continue to keep those results for the rest of your life. So this is one of the roadmaps that I go through. I also have a program, which I don't have the roadmap here, but there's 4 steps to it. And it's my Radiant Women Reset program. And that program specifically is for women in the pre and perimenopausal phases of life, whose goal is to balance their hormones. The 3F roadmap is more for weight loss in general. The 4R roadmap for the Radiant Woman Reset is more for hormonal balance. And there is some overlap because in the balancing of hormones, you are going to experience things like weight loss in general. And most of the time, that is a good thing. And a lot of women with that as one of their goals, they're very happy about it. All right, here are your action steps. I want you to take a look at these and start to see what you can do to help your journey today. Number 1, keep coming to the gym and building muscle. You want to lift 2 to 4 times per week. If you're a brand new beginner, I don't want you to be overwhelmed by all there is to do and all there is to learn. You can start at home with YouTube videos. There's plenty out there of daily workout videos, anywhere from 10 minutes and up. You can start there. But you still have to progress to lifting real dumbbells and real weights. Don't be afraid to pick up those 8 pounds, 10 pounds, 12 pounds, or even higher. Because as you build muscle, you will get used to those stronger weights or those bigger weights, and you can build strength over time. Number 2, fuel your body appropriately. Eat balanced meals with protein, carbs, veggies, and fat. So this is the image where I show you that this is what your plate should look like. So 50% of your plate should be vegetables of all the colors. I say to my clients, eat the rainbow. Red has a set of nutrients, green, yellow, all of these different colorful fruits and vegetables that come from earth all have a purpose because each of the colors essentially mean a different set of nutrients, and you need all of them to help your body function at its best. A quarter of the plate should be some protein-rich food. Think about your meats, your eggs, your fish. Beans will go in the category of protein and carbs because they have a little bit of both. And then carbs should also be 25% of your plate as well. This can be your rice, your starches like potatoes, grains, quinoa, and those recommendations will vary based on your particular situation. And then fats is going to be a tiny amount in the middle. Portion size wise, I like to use a thumb. So the top part of your thumb can be the amount of fats that you eat, whether that be that amount of oil in your food and high fat foods like that as well. Get adequate sleep. When you sleep, you're burning fat in the sleep phases. So make sure that you're getting enough sleep and getting deep sleep. In the process of sleep, you're healing the body, you're burning fat, you're recovering. Refer back to those sleep tips that I gave you earlier in the presentation. This one, we didn't talk too much about it, but digestion is very important for people and their health. You want to make sure that you have a bowel movement at least once a day. Some people are waiting several days before they have a bowel movement, or their stool is very loose and unpredictable. Either end of the spectrum, either not pooping or pooping too much, or poop has strange consistencies. We definitely want to seek a practitioner's help for that as well. If you have all of those already nailed down, I'm going to give you a bonus tip. If you have all of those habits nailed down and you want to optimize your health, this is what I would tell you. I would tell you to focus on mobility. Mobility is also something that is lost as we age, and things like stretching, taking yoga classes, Pilates, even Tai Chi can help keep you mobile. There are fun mobility challenges that you might see online, like getting on the floor without using your hands or getting up off the floor without using your hands. And other such mobility challenges can keep you on your toes and keep you strong. For those moments where you're older and you're on the floor and it's hard for you to get up, well, you'll have those skills, almost like a ninja, of being able to get off of the floor if you practice them now. As we end our presentation, I do want to thank you for listening, but I wanted to offer some help. I offer these 3 free options. There is a free metabolic assessment. It's about a 2 to 3 minute quiz. It's a quiz based on your body, just asking you a few questions like, what do you eat on a regular basis? How do you feel? What is your sleep like? And that will give me just a small snapshot of what your situation is. Same thing for the hormone assessment. It asks you in depth about what your hormonal symptoms are and can give some insight into which hormones might be out of balance. And then this QR code all the way on the right is for a free consultation call. So you'll scan any of these and take advantage. You're welcome to take advantage of all 3 freebies. You can take a metabolic assessment, hormone assessment, and you can schedule a consultation call. And if you do, that's great because we can go over your results on the call anyway and come up with a path forward. If you're really stuck and confused and you want some help or even guidance or even next steps, I would take advantage of any or all of these. And that's essentially what I do in Connected Habits. I like to teach that healthy habits make a healthy lifestyle, because when you connect those healthy habits together, your whole lifestyle will also be healthy as well. All aspects of health will be reflective of the daily habits that you have. So I would love to invite you to a conversation to see if we can help get your healthy habits back on track and come up with a plan. You don't have to do this alone. Thank you guys for listening so much. I wanted to invite you to participate in what you learned today. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me at Vanessa@connectedhabits.com. You can send me messages, questions. You can ask to meet and set up a time for that free consult call at that email address. And then I have a website, connectedhabits.com, who I am, what I do, some testimonials from my past clients, and different ways to work with me. And then my Instagram and Facebook are the same, at Connected Habits Coaching. You can see that I post healthy tips as well. I also have a podcast that is not on the slideshow because I created the podcast after this presentation. This original slideshow was made. My podcast is called the Connected Health Podcast, and you can find it on YouTube if you are a visual person, or Spotify or Apple Podcasts if you like to listen. I have episodes there about health and hormones as well. In fact, the first 4 episodes of my podcast were all about female hormones. So go ahead and listen to those if you want a deeper look at the different hormones that women have and how they work together. Again, thank you so much for listening to this presentation, and I hope to hear from you on social media or in my email inbox.